We are back. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting, and you are listening to the next installment of the Organizational Excellence Podcast. I have a topic that I think is going to hit home for most anyone who's listening to my podcast. The subject or subject matter for this podcast today is focus, distractions, and reality. I'm sure not long ago you came up with a short list at least of things that you want to happen in 2020. It's the timely thing to do, create New Year's goals. We get to the end of a given year. We want things to be different in the following year. And I'm sure there were goals out there that had to do with weight or our business or different things. And you know, there's some things that I believe a lot of people don't really tend to talk about, or they talk about those things and really don't connect the dots, or they think that it's something to talk about other people as opposed to how it may impact us or how those things actually impact other people. So I just went through a short list of friends and clients, some of them the same, just the things that they're going through or experiencing just in the last few months. And these are things that are happening to them personally or things that are happening to people who are in their immediate circle. So I'm just going to rattle some things off here. Cancer, death, equipment failure, staff leaving, staff members who won't leave, team members who are fighting, sick family or friends, and helping those folks out. Patient complications, meaning someone who was treated and then that turns into something really, really big that tends to take up a lot of your time. Competition and the changing environment. Those are just literally a short list of things that I've heard or seen going on with friends and clients of mine. This goes back to the title of this, or the content for this, which is Focus, Distractions, and Reality. So we can all start off on a Monday or start off in a given week, start off the year and say, I'm going to be focused. I'm not going to get distracted. But the reality of it is everyone ends up with some type of distraction throughout the year, week, month. That's really the time when the rubber hits the road. This is when things are critical. This is where you see people win or maybe not. And it's when we encounter things like equipment failure, staff members who leave, when we have someone who's close to us who gets sick, we have complications from a patient, which again might suck up all of our time. Or we have things that are far, far worse than that, like cancer and death. Every one of those things are distractions, and they are things that we have to deal with. However, it's the focus, going back to the first word in all this, it's the focus that we have staying on track. And I think the one thing that we always have to remember is we are not alone. There's not one person who's going to listen to this podcast who will ever be alone. We may feel alone at times, and that partly may be our fault, because we may not choose to ask for help. But the reality of it is not one of us are alone. We all have some way to get out of this. And what do you do with all this? Because, again, we may have come up with great goals. We may have started the year, started the month with this determination and focus, and then reality hits. We get the distractions. They're distractions that are not much unlike what other people are experiencing. But those are the things that a lot of people don't talk about. So what do we do with all this? Well, the first and foremost thing that I think almost everyone, literally everyone, needs to remember is all the good that you do. So case in point, there's a very good client of mine who's dealing with a patient complication right now. It is one that I could literally look back over the course of a year, and this person literally successfully helps thousands of patients in a given year. They have one issue that has cropped up with one patient, and it's something that's completely unforeseen. It's something that's a patient complication that you couldn't even test for. And this has turned into something that's taken a lot of time out of their schedule. It's become something that they've had to hyper focus on, but it is easily something that we can actually also focus on too much to a degree that it starts to affect us in other ways as well. So we do have to sit back and remember all the good that we do. I mean, even statistically speaking, if this person helped 2,000 patients in a year and they had one complication, the percentage is literally minutia. So the second thing is to remember that we have resources and we have options. Every person listening to this podcast has people that can work with them and help them or help continue to move the needle, which is getting on to point number 3. But the first thing to remember is that we have options and resources around us. So that may be people who work for us. It may be people at home. It may be professional help that you can hire. And when I say professional help, I'm not talking about going and lying on a couch somewhere. I'm talking about finding somebody who can supplement some of your activities, someone who can help drive a certain process. So it could be either bookkeeping and accounting. It could be someone who can go out and do sales for you. It's somebody who might be able to go out and do marketing for you. It's someone who can help leverage your time and effort, which gets us to point number 3, and that is that you need to remember, and this is the third point, but also the most important point, and that is just keep the needle moving. It doesn't matter if it moves 1 inch per day. Keep the needle moving. Don't ever allow it to stop. Because if we allow the needle to stop, that's saying I've settled. And I don't know anyone personally who's comfortable with settling, because really when we start looking at the alternatives to where we are right now, settling is usually not an option, not something we're going to be happy with. And I think when those who do consider settling, you have to look at it like, I'm choosing to have yet another problem. So if you do have staff issues, if you do have a friend, a family member who's got a serious illness, you've got cancer somewhere in and around your circle of friends, you may have had a death within your friends or family, those kinds of things. Those are all things we don't choose to have happen to us. But we do consciously make a choice as to whether that needle keeps moving or it doesn't. So just remember, again, I'll run through number 1 through 3 again. 1 is just remember all the good that you do. Number 2 is remember the resources and options that you have around you to keep the needle moving. And third, again, most important out of all this, is just make sure you keep the needle moving every day. Going back to the beginning of this, focus, distractions, and reality. That's what all of this was about. Remember that, because when it hits, because it hits all of us, and I will tell you it hit me last week. I didn't even have this on the list, but I got hit with the flu last week, and it took me down. But there are people that help me keep the needle moving on a day-to-day basis. And now that I'm back in the saddle this week, we're doing double duty to make up for last week. So that was your Organizational Excellence Podcast. Just remember, focus on your goals, manage your distractions, and just remember all the good that you do.